Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Cotbox. So anyone who spent some time with Banjo-Kazooie is familiar with the little guys named the Jinjos. They're the little magical creatures that you have to go rescue across all the different levels. They kind of spend most of the time just standing around saying, help! And this got me thinking there's gotta be more to those little guys. So I did what I do best. I did a little bit of digging and looked around, and what I found was pretty interesting. Join me as we go down the rabbit hole into the surprisingly dark history of the Jinjo in Banjo-Kazooie. To truly understand the full history of the Jinjos, we need to go back in time to the earliest known existence of these creatures. This is not during the events of Banjo-Kazooie, as some would believe. The Jinjo story actually begins on the Game Boy Advance. In 2003, Rare released Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge on the GBA. This game takes place during a bit of an odd spot in the timeline. It's right in between Kazooie and Tooie. After getting her soul put into a machine, Grunty steals Kazooie and sends her back in time what's speculated to be around 20 years to prevent her and Banjo from ever meeting. Banjo, with the help of Mumbo, travels back in time to rescue his friend. While this happens, we get a small peek into the past of this universe. One of the most notable parts is found near Spiral Mountain. In one segment, Banjo finds the early construction of Grunty's original lair, and lying on the ground next to it in the rubble is a statue that resembles King Jingling, the king of the Jinjos. We'll talk more on him later. This leads me to believe that he, as well as all of the Jinjos, used to live inside of what is now known as Grunty's lair. This also means that the king has been around for at least a few decades. However, he is nowhere to be found in this game, or in the original Banjo-Kazooie for that matter. So who is looking after the Jinjo then? Well, that would be the Jinjo Oracle. The Oracle is the spirit of the Jinjo who can communicate with Banjo through these ancient statues. In the game, her purpose is to assist him in stopping Grunty. Banjo must save the Jinjo in each level to help her gain more power so she can continue to help him out throughout his adventure. This starts off the story of the Jinjo, a thriving community living in Spiral Mountain until one day their entire home gets uprooted by a wicked witch. At least they have the Oracle to look after them, since the king seems to be missing. So after the events of Grunty's Revenge, it would seem that the Jinjo Oracle was a one-and-done character. But while looking deeper into it, I've come to a very interesting conclusion. The mighty Jinjonator from Banjo-Kazooie is, in fact, the ancient Jinjo Oracle in physical form. In the original game, Grunty has imprisoned the Jinjo in each world. This is done with the power of a magic spell, since after collecting a Jinjo, they will fly off and magically disappear, presumably back to their home. At the end of the game, the Jinjos put their power together to awaken the mighty Jinjonator. Something I pieced together was that the statue of the mighty Jinjonator looks almost identical to the Jinjo Oracle statue. Considering the amount of knowledge and power that the mighty Jinjonator holds, this leads me to believe that the Jinjo Oracle is in fact an ancient Jinjo deity. This is their god. Individually, the Jinjo weren't very strong, so sealing them away across many worlds inside her lair was probably the best way to keep their combined power under control. But of course, the bear and the bird come out victorious and manage to save the Jinjo. We see them give their power to the Oracle, who then manifests into her own physical form of the mighty Jinjonator, a being assumedly made of pure power and magic. The only power strong enough to stop Gruntilda, at least. Considering how strong the Oracle can become, this brings up an important question. Where was the mighty Jinjonator in the future Banjo-Kazooie games? Well, the answer to that lies within a very specific piece of dialogue from Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts. Let's fast forward to 2008 real quick. In Nuts and Bolts, the Jinjo appear as a side challenge in each level. They ask Banjo to complete specific objectives, usually while making sarcastic remarks. During one of the many Jinjo challenges, there was a specific one that caught my attention. While talking to Banjo, he claims to have been reading the old stories about the fearless Jinjonator. This struck me as odd, since having them labeled as old stories seems to imply that the Oracle hasn't been present for a long time. This brought me to a very dark realization. The Oracle is dead. When the mighty Jinjonator defeats Gruntilda at the end of Banjo-Kazooie, it is also the death of the ancient Jinjo Oracle. After decades of being a source of life, power, and knowledge to the Jinjo, she uses all of her strength to bring herself into physical form as the Jinjonator, only to sacrifice herself for the greater good of the Jinjo. The Jinjo Oracle only plays a small part in the history of the Jinjo. There is, however, one other individual who plays a massive role in their disastrous story. Welcome to Jinjo Village, a quaint home for the Jinjo set between Spiral Mountain and the Isle o' Hags. Here, every family has its own household, and in the center is the palace of King Jingling, ruler of all things Jinjo. Banjo and Kazooie arrive in Jinjo Village as their first stop during their adventure in Banjo-Tooie. One of the first things you do is head straight to the king, where he informs you that due to Grunty's return, all of the Jinjo were scared away from the village. However, he doesn't seem too broken up about it. I kinda like it quiet, but I need to get them all back for the kickball tournament next week. There's a big kickball rivalry between the Jinjos and the moles, which means there could be trouble if we don't turn up. This guy had his entire village scared off by the return of an evil witch, and his first response is, "I like the quiet?" The only reason he even helps you track them down and save them is because the dude's worried about an upcoming kickball game. And to make matters much worse, when Grunty comes through the village and scares all the Jinjo away, she murders, yes, murders, an entire Jinjo family. Among the homes sits the rubble of the Gray Jinjo house. Next to it is a sign that reads, "In loving memory of the Gray Jinjo family, passed away unexpectedly when a huge digging machine flattened their house." Well, no wonder the Jinjos fled their town. They watched an entire family get brutally crushed by Gruntilda, and the deity they once looked toward for protection is gone. On top of that, here is their king, their leader, just lounging at home talking about enjoying the quiet and kickball. You'd think he would show empathy or at least mention the fact that an entire family was put in the grave? Quite the king he turned out to be. And his problems reach much further than just being a poor leader. After some extended research, it would seem that he was deep into some serious trouble. Shortly after meeting him in Banjo-Tooie, Gruntilda uses her big old blaster and sucks the life force straight out of this incompetent boob. During the attack on the king, Grunty says something that caught my attention. She refers to the king as a traitor. But traitor for what? Was King Jingling working with the Wicked Witch? Well, I think I found the answer. When the king is zombified, Banjo can visit him in his decrepit palace and receive hints and remarks about the bosses that you meet throughout the game. An important one is what he mentions about the boss Lord Wu Fatfack. Oh yes, Lord Wu and I go way back. We often go fishing together, but I'm not supposed to tell anyone. Now this raises many questions. Why would the king be involved with one of the many villains who is associated with Grunty, and why would you go fishing with a fish? After some investigation, I've come to believe that the king was involved in an underground, high-stakes gambling ring with some of the lowlifes across the Isle o' Hags. Follow me for a second. See, being labeled a fish in poker means an inexperienced or unskilled player, especially such a player who loses significant amounts of money. All this information tells one hell of a story. It seems that the king has been involved in these heavy gambling groups for a long time and is considered the fish of the group. Over time, he has lost an enormous amount of money and is in extreme debt. The bosses in Tooie must have been his gambling mates, considering his extensive knowledge on how to defeat them. Thanks to his debt, Gruntilda and the others hold immense power over him. It's how the Jinjo were kicked out of their lair 20 years ago. It's how she was able to capture the Jinjo in the first game. It's why the king did nothing to stop her until Banjo-Tooie. And why did he help? Did he finally grow a conscience? Did this spineless wet blanket of a person finally turn a new leaf? No. He wanted the Jinjo back for a kickball game, which he most likely had made some sort of large bet on. It's always been about money for Jingling. The only time he truly opens up to help is after most of his life is drained and he sits on the brink of death. Most likely feeling regret for his actions, the king finally gives Banjo and Kazooie advice to help stop the villains, but it's too little too late for redemption. This is made clear in Nuts and Bolts, where we find him again. At this point, he no longer rules as the king of the Jinjos. Instead, he can be found on the outskirts of Showdown Town running a scummy bingo palace. Welcome to the court of King Jingling, big cheese of the Jinjos. I fear I'm guilty of some self-indulgence regarding my latest hobby. Ready to join the Jinjo bingo craze? Some self-indulgence? Dude, you threw away your entire kingdom as well as your life for your own benefit. You really are a big cheese, a fat slice of Limburger because you reek of failure. At this point, he basically admits to his compulsive need to gamble, and he has moved on to try to skim money in whatever way he can, even claiming his next adventure after bingo is window cleaning. How noble. The story of the Jinjo is a bit of a sad one. Thanks to a powerless king and the death of a deity, the Jinjos never really had a chance. But you have to give them respect for trying to have a positive attitude through all the terrible things that have happened to them. Who knows what the future may bring for these little creatures? Hopefully one day we'll be lucky enough to find out. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Copbox. It was an absolute blast to make. Leave a like if you liked the video, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see future videos as they come out. Doing those sort of things really does help my channel grow and allows me to make more content. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.